Hello and welcome to Understanding Narcissists. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, I want to talk about a topic that's almost always on my mind when it comes to narcissism and abusive types, and really dysfunction of any kind to some degree, is the nature of the reasoning, the thinking, and what I call the conspiracy mindset. The tendency of manipulative people to behave in a conspiratorial fashion. Their inclination to it, their attraction to it, and how they almost easily assemble into a sort of conspiracy to hurt the people who specifically aren't a part of the conspiracy because they don't have this component, I think, like in their minds. Because it's really reflective of the mind and the behavior and the mental health. And the people who aren't a part of the conspiracy don't have that. They either naive, can't recognize it, which we probably all go through at some point, but even when they're to the point where they can recognize it because they're familiar with it, they certainly aren't a part of it because they don't possess whatever this component is. They don't have that desire, this sort of, whatever it is, insecurity, this dysfunction, to participate in it. I'm not trying to draw a line about good and evil. This is an observation. Whether the good and evil line can be drawn is a separate thing, which is probably too grand for this channel, but I've seen a number of comments kind of alluding to it, and I can't say that I'm in complete agreement, so I'm tempted to make a video on it, but it's a little too academic, and even though I'm very academic, I don't think it's pertinent to this channel, but I might do it in the future because it is relevant. If I can find a way to make it more relevant, then I will do it. But until then, we're left with the conspiracy, these ideas of conspiracy, as a behavior. It's not something, off somewhere that I'm just talking about because it's an idea that popped in my head. It's something I've observed too much. And it's really, really prominent among narcissists. Disturbingly so. It's so strong, and it's one of those things that you may discover later because it's kind of like, well, they talk behind your back. You might figure that out later. You may never figure it out, but you'll find clues. You'll get a gut feeling as you start to kind of get into their mind and understand them better. You get it. You're like, oh, I see what they're doing. How they talk about you, who you are to other people, so as to support their illusion, fabricate this image of themselves, and other people can support them. They need everything they can get. They need everything they can get, so they're going to use everything they have. And one of those things is this tendency, due to a worldview or a vision, that I don't want to say it's dog eat dog, because I think that's a separate matter and maybe not even relevant here, but it's that everybody is trying to one-up everybody else. And so he or she who can do that most effectively, who accepts that as a reality and does it most effectively, wins. It doesn't really matter what the outcome is or how successful the person is when it comes down to it, as the logic goes. Because that's clearly not the narcissist's concern. They're not concerned about being terribly successful. Or, let me reframe that, that is their definition of success. Not being productive, not making things that help other people, not forming strong relationships and bonds and attachments and nurturing those things and building other people up to build themselves up. It's the opposite. They are tearing them down. And they're not helping themselves with that either. It just nurtures, it feeds whatever that desire is, whatever that dysfunction is. And so I think the conspiracy is just a reflection of the inner mind. The way they go about using you, using others to create a certain image that they would like everyone to believe. And it's an exchange, it's a transaction, an emotional one. Now, the question is, what am I talking about with conspiracy? Because conspiracy is a very well-defined term, and I'm using the word again and again. In order for it to be a conspiracy, and I do mean sort of like a criminal conspiracy, they can engage in criminal activities, but I'm more talking about the illegitimate nature of their behavior and how they will conspire with others against you to the extent that it benefits them, right? And only dysfunctional people will do that. I have been in the unfortunate and fortunate position of bearing witness to, firsthand, narcissists conspiring, having secret conversations, working together to undermine the interests of myself and my family. Now, I don't really have to get into details about that because it sounds really kooky, and it sure sounded kooky to me when the thought entered my mind when I first heard the idea. But then later on, I found more irrefutable proof, and then I wasn't terribly surprised. Because it makes sense to me that narcissists would do such a thing. But the idea itself is so insane because they don't really get anything from it. It's not a criminal conspiracy in the sense that they're making money or gaining power, or prestige, or something. It's emotional. It was just control. It was just the same kind of control narcissists always grab for. And I had to experience that over a period of years. And then when it came to light that it was going on, and to what extent I'm not sure, but it was still, a little group conspiring against myself and my family, I was, like I say, I was mildly surprised, but it goes on. And then everything kind of came together. I was like, well, of course, because it's a natural property they possess. Not natural. It can be malignant, but they have it, and they all have it. And they all use and abuse and do whatever they can to get what they want in that moment, even when it comes back to smack them in the face. They don't see that coming from a mile away. It's obvious. Any of that activity, that dysfunctional behavior is going to catch up with you in some way or another and undermine their own controlling interest. Maybe even it's going to make them worse off than before they decided to conspire against you. But that is going on. These people do that. And they may not talk about it openly. I was never privy to the conversations. I never listened in. But they do it in a way. They understand the emotional conveyance. They understand each other because they're all doing it. And they know they want to hurt people. And if they can work together to hurt people, they will do it. It's not a secure relationship, even if it's a mutually profitable relationship, because it's not going to last long. It's going to go up in smoke. And they may turn against each other. But bad people work together to hurt good people in the way that, with narcissists, they can't get what they need from each other. It's not going to work on each other anyway. But they need the same thing. They need to manipulate the good people. The good people have what they want, whatever that is. The good people are usually not in a position, at least not initially, to recognize what's going on, so we can be kind of sheep and take all those hits and the battering, and we just keep going because we've determined that we're going to be good no matter what, and we're going to work through this, and we're going to do what the abusive person tells us until we realize that there's what's actually going on, and that these are narcissistic people, and this is something that's never going to end, and we have to rise up and overcome them. But I just want to at least note the conspiratorial nature of dysfunction. And it's just a necessary, I think, part of it. You're not going to get rid of it. You may not always see it, but it's always going on. The reason I don't like it is because when you come across it, you have to be kind of like me, where you've seen all this crazy stuff to even reach that conclusion, because you're afraid of being paranoid. It's a paranoid thing. You see the narcissist acting paranoid. They're very paranoid. Everyone's out to get them. Why? Because they organize and group in conspiracies. They work with other people in a very subtle way to hurt you. That's what bad people do. And eventually it disintegrates and falls apart because it's not going to work. It's not a good way to go about things. It's not a constructive way to go about things. So they've already undermined their own effort, but it's a question of how many people are they going to hurt as they go down. So this might just be my labor of love, indulging my own interest type of video. I hope you've enjoyed it because it's something I just have to note. I know I've mentioned it before, but I kind of want to just sit here and rant about this thing that I see again and again in the nature as I think I talked about a bit in my mean people video. The very different nature of mean people and that insecurity of what's going on with them. There can be a number of reasons for it, but what I see when it's a pattern of insecurity and how they have to go about hurting people and controlling people, whether they're narcissists or not, that's what they do. When they have that mutual interest in that way of fulfilling it, two mean people, they will work together to be mean and manipulate others because they get a kick from it. Not going to last very long. It's not a very good kick, and they're going to have to keep doing it, and they're never going to feel secure or safe in themselves, ever, but they will keep doing it nonetheless. And it's a sad thing, but it's something that I naively overlooked because it's ridiculous. That's not going on. But they do it. They do it in their sleep. They do it as a gut reaction. And I'm not saying people can't get out of it in this case. It's just that it's something that you have to observe because I just find that it goes on a lot and it's painful, but you reach a certain point where you start to recognize it and you're like, wow, this is ridiculous, because you get that vantage point where you can see just how absurd it is. It really is the absurdism that we see in literature and the arts where you're like, I can't believe this exists, but it does. It's so maybe disturbing that I don't want to laugh, but there it is, and I can't believe it's there. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Like it if you do. Share it with somebody you think might benefit from it. Comment in the comment section below about what you think about this topic, and go wild. Talk about whatever you've seen and share your experiences. I'm sure you've got plenty of them, of kooky things you've seen and experienced, but I want to know what you think of this and if it's really a suitable framework, because it's not something I've thought about in great depth. It's just something I've observed, and I can't get away from it. The nature of functional behavior, now I know that's hard to define. I'm not going to go into that. Maybe I will later. Well, I will later. But this dysfunction, I can tell you all about dysfunction. And there's a huge chasm. It's a huge difference. Talk about that. And anything else you want to talk about. I'm not going to tell you what to talk about. But and what you think of this conspiracy and the conspiratorial minded type people. And what's going on and how you're on this track, you're on this rail, and they can't get off it. And they're just so inclined, they veer off into that direction time and time again. What your experience has been, I would love to hear it. I know others would love and benefit from hearing it. Thank you again so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next episode. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.